Every now and again you have to just do something you know is going to end pretty poorly for you, and here I was thinking I'm prepared for how poorly this little shindig was going to end.
But I, lacking the intelligence God gave the shovel,
was not prepared for how bad this is going to be. May Satan have mercy on our souls. 2008 was a crazy year for gaming. Grand Theft Auto 4, Devil May Cry 4, Metal Gear Solid 4, Soul Calibur 4, Left 4 Dead. A lot of 4s. Wait a minute. 2008. 8 divided by 2 is 4.
Bush did 9/11.
But it doesn't end there. From Mercenaries 2 to Dead Space, it was a huge year for memorable titles, some for better and some for worse. But in early 2009, my bro sat me down in front of his PS3 and said, "Here, play these games, you fucking faggot," and I did. The 2 games I played were Metal Gear Solid 4 and one that would become one of my all-time favorite games, and one of my most played games. If you haven't guessed from the title already, it was Saints Row 2. Some short time after Saints Row first hit shelves, me and a group of friends found ourselves sitting around in Walmart, and I had the audacity to ask them, should I get Saints Row or Dead Rising? They of course suggested Dead Rising, and it rapidly became yet another one of my all-time favorite games, even despite the fact that it focused heavily on a mechanic that was anathema to gamers everywhere. But I missed the original, and it wouldn't be until good old Joe sat me in front of his PS3 and made me play the games that I would get my first taste of this series. I never would go back to play the original, and even to make this video I would have had to have bought my 5th Xbox 360 as my Frankenbox finally died. So I have no understanding of the true roots of the series and can only look at it from when I joined in, but if my understanding is correct, 2 is mostly just an expansion of 1, what a sequel usually is. So with that in mind, let's belt out a dirge for the rise and fall of the 3rd Street Saints.
I need a gangsta bitch. A gangsta bitch. I want a gangsta bitch, yo. A gangsta bitch. I want a gangsta boogie with my. I want a. I need a gangsta bitch. A gangsta bitch. I want a gangsta bitch, yo. A gangsta bitch. I want a gangsta boogie with my. I need a. I want a. Yo, I need a gangsta bitch. She don't sleep and she don't play. Sticking up girls from around the fucking.
Oddly enough, our introduction to the series begins in the aftermath of the fall of the Saints. Yes, at the end of the first game, you are betrayed by an orange Julius and are exploded into a coma, with the rest of the crew kind of falling the fuck apart. You awaken and set forth on your renewed conquest of Stillwater in what is easily one of the most straight-faced bouts of absurdism known to man. I have seen it asked more than once in earnest, what is the difference between satire and parody? In short, it's the difference between Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row. Parody is a joke at the expense of someone or something for no reason other than the absurdism. Satire are those same jokes with a statement behind them. Whereas Grand Theft Auto makes their attempts at biting rhetoric with satirizing pop culture, Saints Row sought to parody Grand Theft Auto's grim, serious, flat-out tone deafness. It was one thing for Grand Theft Auto to belt out scathing rhetoric, mocking Republicans and Democrats alike next to straight-faced crime drama, but it juxtaposed itself poorly next to the 20-car pileup explosions the player routinely ran themselves through. It felt sometimes as if the writers and developers weren't working on the same game and they just mashed them together. Saints Row sought to not only point that out, but to absolutely revel in it. Hidden minigames of streaking and car surfing to earn your gang respect, missions dedicated to the idea that you're going to create mass havoc anyway, so we might as well reward you with story progression, side missions that rewarded exploration with hilarious and fun activities that further rewarded the player with infinite sprint, unlimited ammo, new weapons, the list goes on. In GTA, the side crap was just that. Side crap. It added nothing but banality to the game. In Saints Row, exploring the side content was mandatory to an extent, but they did more than enough to make it worth your while. In GTA, you play a sociopath that the developers want you to sympathize with. In Saints Row, you play a megalomaniacal, war-mongering psychopath who is willing to hurl himself into oncoming traffic to help boost the world's smallest insurance fraud market just because it's fun to them. In GTA 5, Trevor was little more than an attempt to reconcile what people loved about Saints Row, and it showed. The parody stretched far and wide in the game and even turned itself towards satire a few times, bringing its own wit to the table. Yes, the story was a straight-faced crime drama, but with the attitude of the boss combined with the absurdist presentation and having to do battle against fucking voodoo, it managed to keep its absurdist tone in check and well-paced. The game shines brighter than ever when they bring the satire. Take the Septic Avengers side game. You join up with a local communist and hose down the city with all manner of fecal matter while they ramble through their upper middle class communist buzzword salad. It's an incredibly simple but fun minigame that is punctuated with a simple bit of commentary. You may be hosing down the city with raw sewage, but she's the one spewing shit. And that may be me reading far too much into the writing, it could be just them throwing a bunch of ridiculous shit together, or what I got out of it could have been their intent all along. What works about it is there are many ways to see it. Whereas GTA beat you over the head with a complete lack of subtlety, Saints Row 2 let you do whatever reading into it you wanted to do. It was all a big joke, and it was a big joke that let you decide how the punchline hit you. It's a truly fantastic game. Its gameplay, however, did not age entirely too well. It's a PS3, Xbox 360 title that features clunky controls and car handling more suited to the PS2 era. It's also the game that made even hardcore Nintendo fanboys start paying attention to PC ports with how legendarily bad it is. It's mythic. It is a tale passed down through generations and will someday exist as a meme long after anyone who spreads it has actually seen it, much in the way Ocarina of Time's Water Temple does. It's so bad that even the coding geniuses behind the Gentlemen of the Row patch had trouble just getting the game into working position. The PC version of the game is a fist in every orifice bad. I thought I understood how bad it was and the Gentleman patch would save me some headaches, but it is far worse than I could have anticipated. When I say this is one of my favorite games of all time, I fucking mean it. To this day, I still fire it up on my PS3 just to drive around Stillwater for an hour, even though the Xbox 360 version is actually superior. But the PC port, which was originally almost wholly non-functioning even with the best coding effort, is still not what I would call playable. Missions that require you to drive become heinously unplayable as the specific car you need will have the turning radius the size of an Olympic swimming pool. Your car somehow lacks mass and enemies will drive head on into you, blocking your movement and causing you to fail missions 10 seconds after it starts. I only have one game on this show that I didn't hit the end credits of before talking about, and I at least sat in front of the final boss before opening my fucking mouth. But I quit this game halfway through. I quit it. I couldn't stand being forced to drive in these broken, flat-out untenable conditions. The PC port is a goddamn legend in how fucked it is. And it claimed me as well. So, what then? A legendary title for good and for ill. Where does it go? Well, in 2011 we got Saints Row the Third. It was an interesting title to say the least. Heavily revamping controls and mechanics, the game played far more smoothly than anything ever experienced in GTA or the previous two titles. But it came at a cost. The game focuses on the absurdism and irreverent humor, entirely shoving the crime drama to a very small corner. The Cockney voice option, for instance, was taken from the lighthearted take on gritty dialogue to a growly, low-toned grumble. The Saints have gone corporate. They've made themselves from a street gang into a brand name that, for some reason, still commits street crimes. The game starts with a bank robbery that goes awry and just gets further and further out of hand from there. From diving through a 747 mid-flight to assaulting a skyscraper with a naked giant, all the way to running around as a toilet through cyberspace. But something was missing. The minigames went from a small, fun diversion to overly long, drawn-out, and overplayed missions, some of which spend too much time trying to pull the "Hey kids, we're wacky, how about them memes?" Even Respect had gone from a mechanic helping gain access to new story to a bar you have to fill up before they allow you to fill out a checklist. The tone had completely shifted. Gone was the parody of GTA to becoming a parody of itself. Worse still, the game knows that it's this. Like Duke Nukem quipping that he hated Valve puzzles then continuing to do one, the game features the boss lamenting what he's become while continuing to be it. Respect is now an arbitrary bar that fills up to get you access to your abilities that you originally got from playing side games, but now even after hitting that mark, you still have to buy the perks. Now side games just give you clothing and sometimes slightly different weapons. It's a checklist game forcing you to go through constant banality while lamenting the banality and driving you down an absolutely linear path where the previous entry allowed you to handle the three main gangs in any order you chose. It wasn't Saints Row, at least not the one I had come to fall in love with. The crime drama was gone, the parody was gone, the game mechanics had been filed down and smoothed in ways that made it incredibly enjoyable to play, never once making me feel hampered in the ways 2's mechanics did, but it lost everything in the process, going from jokes about pop culture to becoming an altar to pop culture, and it would only get worse from there. Eventually, THQ died and Volition was sold off, and the next title would be developed by Deep Silver, and in 2013, we would get one of the biggest affronts to gaming I have ever played. Be the president, wield superpowers, yada yada yada. Well, you're president for all of 7 minutes before the Earth is destroyed. Your superpowers are a Matrix ripoff that was originally planned on being DLC for the 3rd title. Steelport was copy-pasted with smaller modifications than the modding community makes, and worse, the let's mock this thing while forcing you to do it over and over and over until you want to shoot yourself runs absolutely rampant. Before a store can be entered, you must hack it in the Matrix. When you first do it, the characters lament the shitty copy-paste of Bioshock's hacking before asking you to do it for absolutely every shop in the fucking game. Burt Reynolds in the last game? Well, now we have Keith David, and I don't mean Keith David voicing Julius from Saints Row 2, I mean he is playing himself, and the game takes every goddamn opportunity it can to remind you of that fact, even going so far as to recreate a scene from They Live. Loyalty missions that get you next to nothing, the return of the annoying checklist, the constant need to just gather resources consuming far more time than you could possibly imagine. Remember in Saints Row 2, where every now and then you had the chance to uncover an Easter egg of the boss rather poorly belting out some 80s hit? Well, in 3 they recycled that into the boss and Pierce poorly singing a Sublime song, and in 4 they reused it fucking twice in the same mission. Whereas 3 had become a parody of itself, 4 had become a full-on celebration of its own failings. Hey, remember this thing that happened previously in the series? Yeah? Well, now that you remember it, mission over. And as with 3, playing the game has a lot great going on for it. The superpowers are a fun way to explore and traverse the copy-paste, but as it's a copy-paste, I don't give a fuck. And the most egregious act they could have possibly committed was the retcon. You see, Johnny Gat had a story arc in Saints Row 2. It was hard-hitting and memorable when mixed with his personality. But he dies in the first 30 minutes of Saints Row 3. Nope! Turns out a fucking alien kidnapped him before that could happen, cause Johnny, lol, he's a psychopath, guys! It takes work. Grueling, dedicated, intentional, well thought out work to absolutely undo everything great about a game. But they did. And far more wretched than that, they rub it in your face. As previously stated, it was originally going to be DLC for the 3rd title. However, they decided to scrap that and expand upon everything and make it into a full game. But they also decided it would be cool to release what they had anyway so you could see their thought process. And what did we get? We get a DLC that mocks everything that Saints Row 4 makes you sit through. Cracking jokes about skipping long explanations, 4 makes you sit through constant, drawn-out, unskippable monologues as Kinsey explains minutia in excruciating detail. Mocking drawn-out boss fight cinematics, the game makes you sit through that too. A flat-out sickening amount of, hey guys, what about the memes? Putting this out just showed us how incompetent your devs are. And finally we get to Get Out of Hell. It's just more of the same of Saints Row 4 in that regard, just with a hell motif. It has no missions, just reskinned side games, and even goes so far as to point out that they don't have missions. More bullshit, tedious collect-a-thon. More shitty loyalty missions, and more of taking the legacy of Gat as a character and just turning it into a shitty fucking meme. Though even at this point, every now and again, they manage to insert the tiniest bit of wit.
Can you wing it without the gun?
It's a comfort thing.
And here is what it all boils down to. If you do something, like you legit do something, you can't call it a joke and pretend like it doesn't matter that you did it. It's like all those fucking channels that go around doing abhorrent shit then try to cover it up with, it's just a prank, bro. If you're making me sit through banal garbage, calling it out as banal garbage isn't making a joke about banal garbage. It's blatantly insulting me for continuing to purchase your product. Saints Row 2 is a legend for better and for worse. Its legendarily poor port wasn't even THQ or Volition's doing. It was actually ported by CD Projekt Red. You know, the guys who made the nigh non-functioning Witcher, the only runs at 10 FPS on hardware way ahead of it Witcher 2, and the pretty fucking fun but loading is far too long Witcher 3. It's amazing how the worst thing I can say about a game is the legacy that followed it, a true gem with some rough edges, giving birth to the most recycled, tone-deaf cash grab bullshit I have ever seen. Saints Row 2 will live on in the empty space where my heart should be as a fantastic experience, even in the face of a port that I actually rage quit when working on this episode. But everything that came after is the greatest affront to gaming I have seen since Sony's treatment of backwards compatibility. The definitive way to play the game will forever be on console, so if you get a chance to pick it up for the 360 or PS3, do so while you can. One day it may come down to PC being the only way you can play it, and it's best to keep the memory of a fully functioning game alive. Just don't fuck with the multiplayer, it's completely fucked and will crash your system. I'm the Necroswanson, and you can go fuck yourselves.